Has this ever been you?
Well, I just finished my last cosplay, but I have an idea for a new one. Let's go ahead and look up some references. Okay, well, let's see. I have to work on the shirt, which has all of these weird shapes and sizes, the accessories, which are all over the place, and let's not even mention the props. Oh gosh, I'm just gonna go scroll TikTok now.
Oftentimes, when we want to start a new cosplay, we are faced with the fact that we actually have to choose and plan it out and break it down, and by the time you get to that point, you're so overwhelmed by all the parts around and you just don't know where to start. You also get lost when you're in the middle and you forget things at the end. Well, don't worry, I have broken down my cosplay planning down to 4 unique steps. Well, 3 steps and 1 thing to keep in mind. Number 1, decision. Number 2, the breakdown. Number 3, coming up with the tasks. And number 4-ish is organization and keeping everything together. Let's get on to it. Step 1. Decisions, decisions, decisions. Quite honestly, one of the most difficult parts. I know that all of you watching have a cosplay list as long as the Declaration of Independence. And still, you find it hard to choose one to start working on. It can be a big time commitment, it also can be pretty hefty and expensive, and you're not quite sure if it's the right cosplay you want to do right now. Well, don't worry. I can break down those 3 things even more. We're just gonna start breaking things down even smaller. Back to what I was saying earlier, 3 things really help me decide what cosplay I'm gonna choose. And that is time, budget, and reason. That one's interesting. We'll get back to that one. Time and time frame is pretty simple to figure out. I mean, do you have a long time to work on this cosplay, or is it 2 weeks until the con? You should do your absolute best to avoid crunch, and I know it's do as I say, not say as I do. And trust me when I say con crunch is the worst, and having to work on your costume at the hotel room at the con is double worse. So, let's try an example. Say it's 2 weeks to the nearest con and you're on that Breath of the Wild Tears of the Kingdom high. You really want to make Zelda's new fancy gown with the, tabard front piece there, but honestly, it might be a little bit crunching it. So instead, look at outfits from the same game, such as Zelda's white dress. Pretty simple, right? Number 2 is budget. Do you have a tight budget where you only have $50 to work? Or can you just throw money at the problem until you're done? This can help determine what materials you choose and what cosplays you want to do based on the complexity of them. For example, I wouldn't call Genshin cosplays a low-budget cosplay because of the wide variety of fabrics they use, the different techniques and styles they have, like a bunch of resin pieces, 3D pieces. It will all just add up, and especially those crazy long, unique wigs. Number 3, and the final part of the decisions category, is what is your reason for making this cosplay? I know that might be a little bit, well, I'm making this cosplay because I want to cosplay the character. Valid reason. But sometimes you need to dig a little bit deeper. Are you making this costume just for fun and to get some cool photos out of it? Or do you want to enter this cosplay into a competition? All of these factors take into account of how we're going to task out and break down the cosplay. For example, if you wanted to do a competition piece, you'd have to add extra tasks in to make sure that your work is clean, such as finishing seams and edges, and that it's up to your standards and judges' standards. Now that I'm sure you've narrowed down your list quite a bit, pick one. Just pick one. Whatever vibes you're feeling, just pick one. Part 2 of our steps to plan a cosplay is breaking it down. No, I don't mean like Lucio, but if you want to do a Lucio cosplay, you can definitely use this to break them down. This step involves gathering as much reference images as possible, combing through each one, each little small detail from head to toe, until you have a list of what needs to be made. The first part of that, of course, is to gather all your reference images. If you're like me, I take 1,000,001 screenshots and of every single angle, top down, side view, upside down, any way around, you name it. If you can also find references of the undergarments of your cosplay, that is also extremely helpful because it helps with layering on your cosplay, which a lot of costumes and characters tend to do. One site that I recommend is the Games Fashion Archive. It used to be called the Genshin Fashion Archive, where you can isolate the model of the character and their clothes from top to bottom. Once you have your reference images all collected either on your computer or printed out, you're going to start going down your character from head to toe. Leave no detail unturned or unmarked. Make sure you write down everything. And as you go down from head to toe, make sure you write down every single part you notice, every detail, everything. And if you're someone that needs visual references like I am, draw it. Let's use Aela, for example, from Skyrim. Here are some of the reference images I have collected of her. Very many, very, very good, even if Skyrim's resolution isn't the best. Let's start from her head. Well, first I noticed that she needs a red wig, without any bangs and probably a lace front because of how the hair lays. The next piece that really jumped out to me is her shoulder pads, going from head to toe again. These are a double-layered metal shoulder pads with intricate details and texturing, as well as a fur piece underneath. Taking this into mind, I would mark down what materials I am planning on using for it. Her shoulder pads, I'm planning on using EVA foam, and sort of what techniques I'm also going to be using. I'm going to have to draft my own pattern, and I'm also going to have to use some unique Dremel tools to get that pounded metal look. And from there, I will just keep going down the bottom to the character until you get to the shoes, and you feel like you have every piece categorized. For the third part, which is tasks, we're going to take all the pieces that we have gathered and break them down even smaller. So, taking those same shoulder pads for Aela, let's go ahead and break them down to what I need to do. First, I need to draft my own pattern, either in Blender or with paper. Next, I need to gather up my supplies and materials, in this case EVA foam. Then, I'm going to cut the shapes out of EVA foam and glue all the pieces together, so I have one uniform piece and the piece underneath. Next, I'm going to weather the shoulder pads using that Dremel bit I had mentioned before, as well as adding some bits and scratches here and there to make it look more rough. Once that foam build has been completed, I'm going to seal with Plasti-Dip or Mod Podge. Then I'm going to lay down the base colors, which is a nice black. After it's been primed and painted, we're going to go ahead and add the silver, which I'm probably going to use my gilding wax for since it works the best, and make sure I highlight all of the little raised details and texture that I had added. Next, and we're still not done, we're going to add some weathering. So for Aela's shoulder, I would add in some brown weathering to the corners just to make it look a little bit more worn and rusted. Make it look real nasty. Once the paint job is done and the weathering's done, we're going to seal with a metallic varnish just to make sure nothing chips away. And finally, I'm going to add the attachments to the armor. I like to add my attachments at the end just so I can see the final piece, but I know other people that like to add their attachments in the middle once they finish the foam build. Whatever your preference is. And finally, once you're all done with those tasks, they're all checked off and you feel accomplished, you're gonna look at it again. And you're gonna fix anything that needs to be fixed. It's inevitable, especially if this is a cosplay for a competition. Revisiting a piece or the entire cosplay is sometimes necessary. And it's okay, I do it all the time. This also works if you just need to buy a piece. Let's take pants, for example. If you're going to buy your pants, make sure you note that down as buy base pants. Sometimes base pants don't always work out, so you might need to add other tasks such as dyeing them a different color, weathering them physically with scratching and tearing them up, and just weathering them with paint.
So my camera decided to not film the rest of the video, which is cool and all, but I kinda needed that footage. For the last section of the task examples, I have here to show you my Aloy breakdown. As you can see, I broke down each different part from her wig to her shin guards to her base underclothes and made tasks to figure out what I needed to do and how. And for the last little bit is the organization. For this, I have a bin where I basically put every single part of the cosplay that I'm working on or supplies that I'm using and just take out when I need it and put in finished products. That way I know when pieces are finished and if I'm running low on a certain material and I should order more. Very, very useful. Thank you all so much for watching, and sorry that the end of this got a little bit weird. Didn't expect my camera to, give up. But I hope you learned something, and I hope that you can apply this in your future cosplay projects. And if you would do me a great favor and do all the YouTube button things like, subscribe, comment, share, Yeah, that would be amazing. I'll see you guys next week for the next crafting video. I think it'll be very, very fun to watch, and I hope y'all enjoyed. See ya! And of course, this video wouldn't be possible without my amazing patrons: PhoenixGhost, Bulls, PenPen13, Chris, Nathan, and Brandon. Thank you all so much for your support.